Hi, this is Leo from the Gigging Musicians Network, where we talk all things live music with a focus on regularly gigging bands in the cover band and tribute space. Today we are talking with Gary Weldon, the founder of a new service called Banbreeze. Slated to launch in June, Banbreeze is positioned as a no-code web builder for the creation of EPKs and websites for bands and performers. Hey, Gary. Welcome. So let's start with a short introduction. Tell us a little bit about your background, what you've built, and why you built it.
Hey, Leo. Sure. So my name is Gary Weldon. I'm a lifelong musician. I started playing guitar as a kid, started doing the cover band thing as soon as I was old enough to get into bars. That eventually evolved into playing professionally. And so I did some of the big casino resorts, hotels, did some traveling overseas. I currently play in a Foreigner tribute, which is super fun. And I'm also an IT nerd. I've been working in tech now for almost 30 years, both as a system/network admin and also in the development space. And that ties into this project. Originally, I developed software for a toy product under the umbrella of Mattel, the toy company. I built an immersive green screen photo system for exhibition companies that were based on some big franchises like Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, Titanic, Avengers, and a bunch of others. Subsequently, COVID killed that industry overnight, and my licensing and therefore my income kind of dried up, and that forced me back into corporate IT. And so, yeah, it was kind of a marriage of those two pieces of my background and experience in music and tech that eventually led me back to development. You know, any entrepreneur can relate to this, but it's kind of a blessing and a curse to have this kind of mindset. My wheels are always turning. And so while working in corporate IT, you know, I really missed the development process and the mechanism of kind of creating something tangible from nothing more than the grain of an idea. I love that problem-solving process and engineering solutions that are functional and intuitive.
Right. It sounds like the culmination of your background and skill set kind of steered you towards this endeavor. So what was the impetus that put momentum behind this idea that you had?
Well, anyone with a background in tech will understand this, but you sort of become the geek squad for your friends and family. And I was that guy. And because I was also a musician, I was always being tapped by friends to help with, you know, stuff like producing media, promotional content, building websites, anything tech. And it was kind of through that process over the course of many years that I developed, you know, kind of a sense of what people were having trouble with, the pain points experienced by musicians trying to build media and content. And I really wasn't thrilled with any of the DIY solutions that were out there. And in another context, from a booking perspective, because I had worked with agencies for so many years, I just felt like the existing solutions out there just didn't check all the boxes in terms of delivering content in a format that served the booking parties effectively. So there's kind of two parts to that. And so it was through that process of identifying those pain points and wishing there were better tools available that I just decided to build one myself. I felt like there wasn't a good web builder geared towards the creation of EPKs and band landing pages. Something required no technical acumen, where users could just upload content, copy and paste some basic info, and generate an attractive and functional web presence.
Nice. And yeah, that makes total sense. So I'm curious, on a personal note, what was the catalyst that made you decide to build the platform?
Well, so last year, while working my corporate IT job and spending 4 hours a day in a car commuting, which is kind of soul-sucking, the development bug kind of got the better of me, and I decided it was time to get back to what I love doing most. So essentially, I started storyboarding a general workflow for the app. You know, I had the idea for a while and sat on it, but so eventually I built some rudimentary UI mockups, penciled out the basic architecture of the app, and really just started building it.
Love it. I totally relate to a lot of what you're saying. For most of us, what we are passionate about and how we pay the rent don't necessarily align. So it's great that you were able to use your collective experience to do something that is fulfilling for you on a personal level. So take us to the current state of the platform. Where are you currently?
Well, so we're shooting for a June 1st launch and working really hard to put all of the final pieces of the puzzle together. Now, that may or may not happen. Development can be a bit unpredictable. At the end of the day, I need to ensure that it's fully functional. I'm not going to release something that's half-baked and not really ready for prime time because I'm impatient. And I am impatient, make no mistake. This has grown into a fairly extensive project with a lot of moving parts. So, it's been a long time, and I'm really stoked to finally get this out there and get people using it.
Sure, and agreed. You only get one shot to make an impression on the end user. So rushing to release would be like serving casserole out of the oven that's still cold in the middle. You've got to have a functional app before you open the floodgate of users. So give me an idea of the size of your team and the business mechanism for the development piece. For instance, do you have any kind of VC funding or partnerships?
No, it's completely bootstrapped at this stage. It's just myself and two developers who've been with me since the beginning. And it certainly hasn't been easy. Reminds me of the old Johnny Cash song from the 70s called One Piece at a Time. Some of you may be familiar with, where basically he's working on a vehicle assembly line in Detroit and he's pilfering parts and sneaking them out in his lunchbox, in his toolbox or whatever. And so that over time he somehow manages to piece together a new car because he couldn't afford to buy one. So it feels a bit like that because I have a family and a mortgage and a day job and I've had to tackle this kind of in phases. But I am really lucky. I've partnered with some really skilled developers who have stepped up and really assumed ownership and just put a ton of heart and sweat equity into building the best solution. And it has been enormously challenging. But again, I really do enjoy that process. It's like building a house. You start with a shovel in the dirt and nothing else. You build a foundation, and over time you watch it manifest into this tangible thing where you get to, at one point, stand back on the sidewalk and just appreciate this thing that you've constructed. And so I'm really happy with what we've built.
So it sounds like it's competing in the same space as some of the other popular no-code builders, like Wix, Canva, Squarespace, and of course similar services in the musician space like Bandzoogle. Is that accurate? And what is the big differentiator between BandBreeze and some of these other platforms?
Well, not really. I mean, there are some really great web building platforms out there. But as I mentioned earlier, it just didn't feel like any of them really served the music space, and more specifically, provided a mechanism to build sites that were geared towards the presentation and delivery of content for booking parties, which is a different thing. I mean, there's similarities, but there are some key differences. You look at something like a Wix or a Canva, and they are amazing with the amount of flexibility they offer to publish attractive websites. But as easy as they are, they aren't easy enough. Musicians don't care about CSS. They don't know what an HTML block is. And let's be honest, not everyone has a good eye for aesthetic. So while these platforms are incredibly feature-rich, I feel like you can really get lost in the nuance, if that makes sense. You can do so much with these platforms that it can be overwhelming, actually. And that amount of flexibility ends up being counterintuitive because with that level of control over the design, you can easily create something that just doesn't look good. And so I set out with a different goal in mind, and that was to create an ecosystem where the end user's only job is to upload content and choose a design. So unlike a Wix or a Canva, there's some things you can't do. You can't rearrange sections. You can't choose fonts and colors because all of that's kind of baked into our themes, which are curated. So basically you pick a design that appeals to you and aligns with your band image. You populate some data and you've got a fully fleshed out landing page that is functional and looks great. That's it. Now, if you are a techie person, as a disclaimer, and you do want more granular control over every element of your site, and you have the technical acumen to navigate those functions, then yeah, fantastic. Use what works best for you, is really what it comes down to. But, simplicity is always going to find an audience, and that's our audience.
Right. I would tend to agree with that. I think that is one of the big pain points for a lot of bands is that they just don't have a great presentation and don't know how to put one together, so you end up with something that just looks bad and doesn't serve the intended function effectively. And it's a shame because as good as you might be, your opportunity to make an impression on a booking party largely comes down to your landing page. If they can't find what they're looking for quickly, they move on. So I do see the value in this for sure. Now tell us about your feature set and how would you describe the overall user experience?
So with our platform, everything is organized into sections. So you've got your branding, like, band photo, logo. You've got theme selection, which determines how your public site appears, bio, video reel, photo, sound clips, testimonial, press links, promotional assets, stage plot, and I'm probably forgetting some. Everything is upload, copy, and paste. And so you can enable or disable sections as desired. For instance, if you don't need a stage plot because you only play small local venues and typically run your own sound, you might not need that, so you can simply hide that section. And so that's kind of the core platform. And then, of course, you can tie your site, your landing page to a custom domain. So if you've got a website for your band, we can tie that domain to it. We include an email address on the custom domain with a webmail client that's included. So it's really, kind of a one-stop shop where everything is accessible from a unified dashboard. And on top of the core platform, I've also built some additional tools that I think users will really benefit from. For instance, I built a video demo reel creator, since creating a decent video is consistently one of the challenges I see with end users. I built a drag and drop stage plot design tool that creates a slick graphic with text labels and input lists. I've added an AI mastering tool with which you can upload a sound file and apply some basic mastering parameters like, EQ and normalization. Great for punching up cell phone recordings, which we all do. Anyway, the idea behind these extra tools is that you don't need to spend thousands of dollars for studio recording or professional video shoots to have a decent presentation. When you send your site link to a venue manager, they're looking to make a quick assessment of how you sound and present. So, in my opinion, you don't really need highly produced content for that. You can't make up for a lack of talent or presentation with slick production value. Agents see right through that. They see enough band submissions to recognize pretty quickly if you meet their standards and are a viable booking option. So you're not going to sway them because you spent $2,000 on your demo video. So yes, the quality of your media is important, but your average cover band can do fine with media captured from cell phone, and if it's done well. And so our tools help format that stuff to publish to your public profile. And so I guess if I had to summarize, the entire goal of our platform is to allow the end user to produce a great presentation without being immersed in a sea of configurable options, one that is super easy and intuitive to navigate and publish content. And I think we've done a pretty good job of realizing that original vision.
And where do you see this going in the long term?
Well, I'd love to see the platform, organically scale up. Once it grows some legs, we can invest more into the platform, build out some additional features. I'd like to eventually have a couple hundred template options. But of course, that takes time and resources. And so for now, I really just want to get folks using it and benefiting from it. And we'll see where the future takes us.
Well, Gary, I can certainly appreciate the amount of effort that has gone into this project. And I can sense the passion that you have for it, which is very cool. And yes, I definitely see a need for this type of service in our realm and think that you're onto something here. So for our viewers, how can someone get their hands on it? Is it available now? And what does the sign-up process look like in terms of cost and commitment?
Well, so as I mentioned, we are hoping for a June 1st launch. That's this year. To 2025. It will be offered on a cloud subscription basis, like most cloud and SaaS services. Pricing will be competitive with some other web building platforms, except I like to think that we offer more value considering the extras that we provide. I actually contemplated how to release the service and finally just decided, I'm just going to open it up to everyone at first, to what amounts to a trial period of 15 or 30 days. I'm not exactly sure yet. Super simple, no credit card required, no commitment, just a name and an address, and you're in. So we want people creating and publishing great sites with the least amount of friction to get started. We don't want to make you jump through a bunch of hoops to get this going. So I'm kind of banking on the notion that our users will get value from the platform and transition to subscriber status.
Excellent. I like that. I hate giving my credit card for trials because half the time I forget and end up paying for something I didn't want.
Well, yeah, exactly. I struggle with that initially. Honestly, do I take a credit card and automatically subscribe users after the trial period? And eventually I just arrived at the conclusion that if people find it useful and find value in it, they'll stay with us. And that should really be the only deciding criteria. I don't need to hold someone's credit card captive. The service should, sink or swim on its own accord.
Great perspective, and I agree. Where can people find you?
And so our site is bandbreeze.com. That's band plus breeze like the wind, .com. I'd like to extend an invitation for anyone listening to come check it out, sign up. Again, there's no credit card required, and within a few minutes, you can be in there building out your band page.
Awesome, Gary. Well, again, I think it's a solid premise and expect that it will do quite well. I appreciate you taking some time to chat today, and I wish you great success.
Awesome. Thanks, Leo.
If you're interested in checking out BandBreeze, visit bandbreeze.com. I'll also post the link in the video notes below. That's going to wrap things up for us today. Thanks again to Gary and BandBreeze. Thanks to you for watching. And as always, keep on rocking and making great music.